It's all about upcycling, because I'm very excited that has become fashionable over the past few years, because I've been doing it since I was old enough to hold a paintbrush, quite frankly. And so the fact that I'm on trend now as opposed to a cheapskate just makes me quite excited. I happened to notice a pine kitchen table and 8 chairs in someone's front drive. Now, I have no shame when it comes to this kind of thing, so I actually went and knocked on their door and said, would you perchance be getting rid of the furniture in the front, and could I possibly take it off your hands? And they kind of looked me up and down and said, yes, if you can take it away, it's yours. So bingo, I had myself a new table and 8 chairs. Now, it's probably more of a story of one man's junk is another man's junk, because the kitchen table in particular was that disgusting orange pine. It just looks like a bad fake tan. It was really fashionable in my youth and will probably come back in 20 years time, but I can't stand it. So it needed some work doing to it. Unfortunately, the amount of woman hours I put into this table actually means it's probably one of the most expensive pieces of furniture I will ever own. So what I'm going to do today is talk you through what I did to it, just to save you some time for a start, but also to show you how, if you have got any of that gross orange pine in your house and it's letting that room down, that you can do something about it very easily. I didn't want to just paint it, the typical kind of painting furniture thing. I wanted to try something a bit different. So the first thing I needed to do was strip the top. So I used this stuff appearing on your screen right now, called Authentico Bio Strip. Oh, by the way, I didn't do the test patch, which they tell you to do, which I probably would advise you do now, having spent a long time unnecessarily. So instead, I just coated the whole of the tabletop with this stuff. And then I got my trusty scraper and started scraping it. And basically what I got was this really disgusting orange jelly. The table was still orange, but it was just coated in this really sticky mess. And it just wasn't working. It took me ages, like Popeye arms worth of scraping the table, and I still wasn't getting the strip that I wanted. So I then got out my trusty Black & Decker hand sander, and what I hadn't thought of the fact was that the gunk was obviously going to stick to the sanding pads. So I basically spent way too long getting nowhere. Stopped and had a glass of wine, but eventually I managed to get that lovely kind of fresh, clean pine finish on the top this is. So my next stage, I wanted to try something different, so I discovered this liming stuff from Liberon, whatever they call it, and oh my goodness, I've got to open it just to get the smell. Hang on. So the smell of this stuff is amazing. It smells like limes. Surprisingly. I think actually it's probably quite toxic and I'm not really supposed to be sniffing that. But anyway, it was quite an enjoyable experience liming the table. Oh, by the way, first of all, I used a wire brush. Let me get that. So here's my wire brush. And this was basically to bring out the grain, just rough the table up a little bit, and bring out the grain so that when I then put the lime into it, it would actually really get into the wood. And I love the finish I got from this. Now, because it's a kitchen table, I knew it was going to need some kind of finish as well to protect it. Now, I know these days, everyone loves this wax finish that's kind of slightly shiny, it's got a little bit of a sheen to it, but for me, the flatter the better. I just love it when it's really flat. So I found this stuff, which is from Ron Seal. So it does exactly what it says on the tin. Interior wax, it's basically a liquid wax that you paint on, so it's really easy to apply. This one is white ash. And you only have to wait an hour in between coats, and I have to say it's been pretty good. I love the finish though. It's so powdery, and generally it's pretty hard wearing, except that end of the table is knackered already because I have a little monkey in the house who eats at that end and has somehow managed to destroy my piece of art. Now, I don't regret using it. The one thing is I did read the tin today and realised that it said that although it's 1 hour between coats, you then leave it for 2 or 3 days before you put anything wet on it. So I think when I do my touch-ups, I'm going to do a couple more coats and maybe I'll actually follow the instructions this time. Good plan. But I have got a strategy. Mummy's put a lot of work into this table, so you've got two choices. You can either just eat and drink things that are grey from now on, or you can just have make-believe food and drink. It's just the way it is, I'm afraid. Which would you rather? Make-believe? Oh, that's hot, by the way. So basically, I'm always going to have a tablecloth on when she's eating and no curry on the table. Now for the legs, a slightly more simple process. So I started off using Authentico vintage chalk paints in grey, and unfortunately the grey was just slightly too blue for my kitchen. But you need to use a chalk paint as a base because otherwise you'll need to prepare the wood. Now, always use sugar soap before you use chalk paints, by the way, to get rid of the grease. So I use that as my base in the end, and then I just used my wall paint. So you can use emulsion on top, and then I finished off with the Ronseal wax just to make sure that it had that protection. And because obviously you do get a lot of traffic on the legs with feet and everything, and it's still looking really good. So that has definitely worked a treat. And then, to protect the surface even more, I took some rather interesting tiles that have a kind of Moroccan feel to them and just added some felt feet. And now they, I think, give a great pattern to the table, but at the same time we can use them as hot plates as well, so we've got that protection. And that is how I transformed a free table, after quite a lot of time, money and expense, into a work of art. And I'm very pleased with the result as well. So I now just have 8 chairs to go. So watch this space. So my home coaching tip for today is look around your house. If there's any furniture that is really letting that room down and actually just makes you feel bad about that room, I don't think that money is ever a good enough excuse. Maybe time, it can take quite a bit of time, but just don't watch TV for a couple of days and you can transform that piece of furniture, and it's instantly going to make your room feel better, but it's also going to make you feel better when you're in that room. And that's it for today. I'll see you next time.